So, Frank, are we good?
We're good.
I'm seeing a blue screen over us. Is that blue? Is that blue to protect us from the glare of the camera?
Well, I mean, it should just have your should that be the videos up at this point? Let's see.
Well, interestingly. Anyway, so we're live with the Bill and Frank show, and I'm Bill Walton, and this is Frank Waziter. I'll let him introduce himself in a second, but Frank and I have been working together for a couple of years now. I got into a hobby really of producing a show called the Bill Walton Show, which is where I get into complicated stuff with hopefully smart people, and we try to figure out what's at stake for regular people. And we've covered a lot of topics. Obviously, now we're covering things like the lockdowns and financial markets in China. Uh, and Frank and I have been talking a lot about what's going on with social media and speech and our ability to get the word out. Frank?
Yeah, so a lot of what we do is fundamentally related to tech, and originally the internet started off as something that was just was meant to be a place for freedom of information, access to information, access freedom of expression, and as it turns out, running having the world connected online is quite expensive, so you've seen all of these this consolidation. A few major entities control all of the infrastructure that powers the internet. The servers, the line, the lines that physically connect people together, and as a result, you get situations where somebody could push a button and eliminate somebody's content. If you've got a Twitter profile with a whole bunch of followers, Twitter at any time can hit a delete button and you're gone.
Well,
You know,
I'm the old guy on this show. You're the young guy, and we're doing that on purpose because my background's in finance and capital markets. I've been CEO of a big financial company, but that didn't really teach me much about technology or social media or the internet. But I do remember being very idealistic as a libertarian thinker that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the internet was coming up and it was going to be this wonderful place where all of us could engage in speech and interact with each other without any intermediating media companies and let the best idea win. It would be really terrific. And I had a friend on, Jeffrey Tucker, on my other show last week, who we were talking about, and he wrote about this, and I teased, well, I probably read you to figure out what I thought. And we all thought that. And now Jeffrey's doing a lot of work on the effects of the lockdowns that the pandemic has inspired, and its effect on freedom. And he's had a lot of his shows banned on YouTube, and I've had a couple of my shows on pulled from YouTube because we talked about vaccines or ivermectin or things like that. I mean, so it's gone from this wide open thing to everything's controlled by five companies. So, Frank, who are the five companies, or six companies, or seven companies that control our speech?
so fundamentally, it comes down to Google, Google number one, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and then conglomerates of other companies that tend to I'm sure you're familiar with from the finance world, where every couple of years they got to rechange their name. They get bought out, and because
Well,
they get
Google now's Alphabet.
yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
whatever that means.
And there's a lot of players that actually bought up a lot of the independent hosting companies. And if you're not familiar, the hosting companies is what enables like your website or anything like that to be up. And they've got a million sub brands, and so even if you think you're buying from one person, the reality is at some point in the chain, those companies have their fingers in it. And infrastructure wise, a lot of it's Google and Amazon, especially when it comes to powering any apps, any server technology, anything of that nature. And that's why you get situations where, Parlor got momentum. There was, a volatile situation. The plug got pulled, and all they had to do
So
was,
Parler was supposed to be an alternative to Twitter.
yeah, like, they were saying,
Okay.
hey, this is just another social media channel. It's another,
Yeah.
it's just another area for people to go in, as an alternative to Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And they got up to 20 million users in January. And then, they came out and said, okay, well, this is related to, the riots and all that kind of good stuff. And, media went against them. So, they pull the plug. And because of this consolidation with these companies owning it, they couldn't find another host. So all these companies had to do was pull the plug and then not turn it back on, and there's nothing you can do. Like obviously they sued them, but they say, okay, well, we got more money than God, so we'll just, all right, we'll wait the 6 months for, a court to do something about it, and by the time you come back, everybody's forgotten about you, which is exactly what happened.
Well, how do people in Silicon how do people in the tech community feel about this? Because I go back years where the tech community used to be pretty libertarian and used to be leave us alone, Washington. We don't have anything to do with politics, and now they become almost an enforcer of thought that the government wants you to have. I mean, the mandate on the vaccines is Exhibit A, and if I'm working at Google or if I'm working at Facebook or Twitter, I'm thinking, gee, we're shutting down this speech, and we approve of this now because we know the vaccines are perfect and they're going to work for everybody, even though some of us don't. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, don't you think what's good, turnabout's fair play, and eventually it's going to come for you?
Yeah, well, so I think there's two angles here. There's like management and the tech companies. So, the bigger the company gets, at some point, they've got to get, at some point they all become the quote unquote evil empire, right? Because it becomes, profit, interest, and everything like that. So, any criticism that anyone has of, like, the classic criticisms of oil and gas, or, tobacco, or, any, insert big industry of your choice, it's just tech's turn. But the individual developers, most of it to this day, it's still, I'd say, very much libertarian, and it's like, because it's it comes down to a fundamental lack of faith in any, politician or political organization to really affect any kind of change in our lifetimes. And to make that change, we say, okay, well, we need to make better technology that betters societal issues or betters, humanity in whatever case that may be. And that means going about and saying, on some issues, you say, okay, yeah, you might lean a little bit more right. On other issues, saying, yeah, we might lean a little bit more left. But it's like, okay, fundamentally, it's like, let us, it's not up to me or you to say what opinion you should have. Just that, you should have the right to have that opinion. As long as civil liberty is protected, then it's okay. Provided, someone's not going out and being like, doing dumb stuff like, hate speech and things like, like who,
Well, how do they
obviously no
monitor
one's going
this?
to support that.
How do you monitor this speech? The question I've got is, what is it, like 1 billion hours of video goes on to YouTube every day? How do you monitor something like that? How do you know, is it artificial intelligence? Are there ways to break down what the content is? Because I've had a couple of my videos I had pulled. It was just like one sentence by one guest was the offending sentence, and it was at about 20 minutes into the video, and the promotion didn't have that on it, the title didn't have it on it, and yet they found that sentence. So what are they doing? They're doing speech recognition and then scanning the the words, or what how's it how technically how's this happening?
So, a lot of it's, AI based. A lot of it's just that the programming languages are sophisticated enough now. So all of that tech, for instance, on your phone, when you say, hey, you want to give a voice command, that device is technically, always listening. That doesn't mean it's recording. It means that
That's
it's,
that's that's comforting. That's good to
yeah.
know.
I've scared a few lawyers with that a couple times.
Okay.
But like if you go on Facebook right now today and you make a video, you have an instant transcription option. So within a couple of seconds, it can pull the entire videos, anything that you've said in that video, and transcribe it and turn it to text. So really, that text gets written, and when there is volatile situations such as the past year, uh, what happens is just blanket. It just says, anything that we can catch any heat for. What the benign definition is, anything we can catch heat for. We're just gonna, the program's just gonna automatically pull it, take it down, and then there'll be manual review doing there. Like there was separate policies for the way the Facebook algorithms worked, the way the Google algorithms worked during the lead up to the election because of the volatility, or at least that's the that's the thing going out. And then afterwards, they returned it back to what it normally is, because every single the problem with these algorithms is that they are designed to keep you on the platform, because that's how they make money. That's how they make advertising dollars. That's how, Facebook makes money when you're on Facebook, not when you're on Google. Google makes money when you're on Google, not when you're on your website, so on and so forth. So they're going to do, whenever you, so much as, if you're scrolling through your phone and you stop to pause for a second, that algorithm picks up you stopped scrolling, or you clicked on something, or you liked something, or you commented on it, and the algorithms say, okay, well, let's give you more of this because you responded to that. If you like that, then that's going to keep you here. And the unfortunate side of that is the easiest emotion to elicit out of somebody is anger. And nothing keeps somebody engaged than something that you disagree with. So what happens is people get more and more content that's more and more controversial, whether it's true or not, and all you see is one version of the truth because it filters everything out. Because if you see the opposing opinion,
So what you're saying is I'm programmed. My device right now is programmed that I'm gonna, if they see that I've reacted in anger to something, then they're going to give me more of that.
yep,
And so I'm going to get driven further and further and further into my anger.
yep.
That's
Google
great.
has Google for 10 years has had a patent where like a Google Pixel phone can actually read your facial expressions and change your search results based on how your facial expression
You mean if I
responds to search.
what could go?
Yeah, well,
Shock,
let's say
anger.
you search for restaurant, and let's say you search for restaurants and you get McDonald's, and you're just like, it'll stop showing you McDonald's.
Is that right? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's not really true, is it?
no, it's
So
absolutely
if
true. You
I'm
can do the
doing
patent
this,
search.
my camera's looking at my face and deciding pleasure
Well,
or
not
pain.
on the Apple devices, but on the Android devices, it does.
Okay, well I got an Apple device, so that's
Yeah. Now Apple might be doing something, because they're all, but that's an
yeah.
actual real patent. That technology is 10 years old already. It is already 10 years old. And so you got it. The question you got to ask is, you've got this situation happens in this sense. And now you've got the richest companies on the planet that are all these tech companies. Is it so? You've got the financial background. Is it possible no matter how much money you have as an individual, or even the company that you were CEO of on Wall Street and everything of that nature, could you win a money fight against even a single $1 trillion company?
I'm not sure I understand.
So, is there any entity that could go toe to toe, resource wise with cash against,
Well,
Google and Apple, for
well, yeah.
example?
I mean, let me put it differently. I think Google and Apple are probably making 50, $60 billion a quarter. I'm not precise about those numbers, but I was doing some research for a show on China to get some feel for relative profitability of these companies versus Chinese tech companies. And how do you sue somebody that's got a couple $100 billion in cash flow a year to pay for lawyers? That's your
Yeah,
point.
you can't win.
Well, I don't even think the government's got the kind of resources to go after somebody who's lawyered up like that. And then, of course, what you do is you hire every law firm, and so you conflict all the law firms so they can't defend anybody else because you're a client. Of course, I don't know. The government probably doesn't get conflicted out, but even so, if you want to fight these guys legally, I don't think you've got a China's man chance in hell. Pardon, I probably said something very politically incorrect.
Well, no, you don't.
I love
You
all
don't.
the Chinese people,
Yeah,
just not the
you have.
party.
Yeah, you have zero chance. You have zero
Yeah.
chance. You know,
Okay.
even if you were Warren Buffett, couldn't afford it. You know.
Okay. Well, look, I think this is good for chapter one for this thing. Do you want to wrap up in a minute or two, or just what are your thoughts? What are your final thoughts?
Well, I would say this. It seems the question you got to ask is how do you how do you beat entities that at this point have infinite money and resources, and fortunately there is a technology.
Pardon me. I don't want to. I want to interrupt you because I'm curious about the reach for what we're doing right now. How do you get? Is it possible we could be getting shadow banned now that we're putting something out? We've talked about social media censorship, and somebody's picked that up and they said we don't want people to see that announcement.
I mean, it's always entirely possible. I always choose to believe first that it's your own engagement rates and things like that first, and everything else second. At least for my own sanity. But when you see certain patterns repeated over and over again, it's certain topics just aren't just don't fly.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but that again comes down to you don't have control. You don't have control over the algorithm going in.
yeah.
But
Okay,
there is
all
a
right. On
silver
that
lining.
happy note, I'm the algorithm in, algorithm out.
Yeah.
So let's talk. You want to talk next week?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
that's we get into the good stuff because there's I
We got to
just
come
leave it
up.
at this little I'll leave it as a cliffhanger is that technically crypto is the way that the world can get out of this situation, but not in the way that everybody else is thinking about it.
So you are going to lead us out of this
Well,
jail
not
or
me personally,
speech
but
jail. Well, anyway, you're going to show us the path.
yeah, there is the technology already exists, and in
So
a
I
way that
need I
nobody
need to
can stop.
bone up on cryptocurrency.
Well, it'd probably be a good investment, but it's really not
No, I mean
necessarily
so I
about the
understand what the hell you're going to say next
yeah.
week.
Well, yeah, you should definitely research it. You should
Okay, I'll
research
research.
research
Okay.
blockchain. Everybody treats it like a stock investment or a forex trade or something like that, and that's not the power. The power is what actually makes it possible. So it's the
Okay.
technology underneath, and next week I guess we'll talk about how that permanently solves any problem with content censorship or with centralized networks, because it's called the decentralization of the internet. So, and it's
Okay.
exactly how you take down $1 trillion company. Not take them down, but it's how you
I'm f-
go
Okay.
against a $1 trillion
All
company.
right. So I'm gonna study up between now and next week. Frank, thanks.
All right.